Question. What kind of bear is best?
That's a ridiculous question.
False. Black bear. Fact. Bears eat beets.
Oh.
Bears beets Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not...
Duke, what's with the hair? You got aspirin?
You should feel better momentarily, and your memory will slowly return.
Duke, what's with the hair?
The specific...
Yeah, Bob. You remember Bob, the guy that's gonna launch a nuclear attack? You got any more abuse you want to hurl my way? Or are you ready to go in here and take care of Bob?
What do you propose, Bob?
When in doubt, C4.
It's your favorite crazy little penguin, and we're back from a long hiatus, and we're doing penguin thoughts again. And this is take two, because I tried to do this just earlier, and I had audio issues. It figures this little penguin was using Windows. Go figure, right? So now I'm over in Linux, and hopefully we shouldn't have any problems because I'm used to doing penguin thoughts in Linux. So we're in Linux today, and before we get started, of course, we want to make sure that we're sipping our iced coffee. So if you got them, sip them. Okay. Before I actually get into the first thing I want to talk about today, I want to say from this little penguin's heart down to all the people down in Florida that are being affected by Hurricane Helene as well as Hurricane Milton. My heart goes out to you. My prayers are with you. I've been praying for your safety, and hopefully God's hand will have his divine touch on you. Oh, hey, Brother Stump. I'm using, you're asking what version of Linux I'm using? I'm using Ubuntu. Ubuntu 2204, I do believe. So anyway, glad you're here. We're going to talk, we're going to dive in here, but once again, I think it's really bad what's happened. The nature is pretty powerful, but this little penguin's prayers are for the people of Florida today. So hopefully they God's providing hand will be over them. Anyway, I got several things I want to talk about. The first one is some little bit of pop culture news that maybe you don't know or don't realize. But do you guys remember who Tom Welling is? Tom Welling was the guy who played Clark Kent, a young Clark Kent, on the CW show Smallville, which is one of my all-time favorite shows. Even though it was on the CW, it went for like 10 years. It's really good. It just kind of showed what Clark Kent would, aka Superman, would be like growing up as a teenager in Smallville. Hence the name Smallville. Well, the guy who played that is named Tom Welling. And let me switch over here to the article I'm going to bring up. It says right here, I found an article. By the way, all the links to all the articles and videos I got are down in the description of the YouTube and also Rumble description. So you can either check it out afterwards, or you can check it out later if you're watching this on Memorex. Anyway, Smallville's Tom Welling explains why he wants to wear the Superman suit on screen. I thought this was very interesting because one of the issues that Tom Welling had about doing Smallville was he did not want to be typecast as Superman for the rest of his acting career. Well, that's why he was so resistant there to put on the suit in the first place. And if you remember, spoilers of how the whole series went, it wasn't until the very last episode of Smallville that we actually got to see Tom Welling as Superman in the suit. Well, apparently now he is wanting to be in that suit again, which I think would be really kind of cool. Because even when we saw him back at the Crisis on Infinite Earths CW crossover with the Arrowverse, where they had, Brandon Ruth come back and play a Kingdom Come version of Superman. They also had Tom Welling come back, and they visited him there in Smallville, but he had given up his powers and everything. He wasn't wearing the Superman suit again. He's just chopping wood, living on a farm. Anyway, I find this very interesting. So let's dive in here to the article. Let me zoom in a little bit here. I can on it. If it'll let me. There we go. It says, although Tom Welling played Clark Kent in all 10 seasons of Smallville, the actor never got to properly showcase the Superman suit. Yeah, like I said, only in the very last episode. While the iconic gear was briefly revealed underneath the character's shirt in the series finale, it didn't really count as getting to don the entire costume. Welling had always supported the no tights, no flights rule set by series creator Alfred Goff and Miles Millar. However, the actor told Comic Book Movie that he has recently had a change of heart. I think now, because the two boys that I have with my lovely wife, we have a bunch of costumes at home, he said. It started out at first Halloween, and now we have, 40 or 50 costumes. That's crazy. Uh, the one costume we don't have is the Superman costume. I asked my son why, and he said because he's taken. And I said, by who? By you. That was like, all right, I think I'm open to the idea now. Out of the mouth of babes, you know what I mean? So if you know anybody, I think it would be great. I think it would be fun to be part of it. And actually, here he is talking about it briefly, which we're not going to watch that, but you can actually go in this article and play that little YouTube snippet there and listen to him directly. I'm just going to continue reading the article here. The Smallville rule kept Welling from wearing the Superman suit was part of a creative decision to make sure the show focused on Clark's journey as a teenager, figuring out his identity rather than him immediately becoming Superman. Now, yes, that was the rule that the creatives that created Smallville wanted to keep to, but also there was rumors out there that Tom Welling himself really wasn't wanting to be in the actual suit himself. Now it looks like because of his kids, he's kind of changed his stance on that, which is kind of cool because I personally would love to see Tom Welling playing Superman. That would be awesome. Can you imagine getting a Superman series with him being the Superman from Smallville? That means we'd have to bring back Erica Durance as Lois Lane and so forth. I think that'd be really kind of cool. Anyway, there is an animated Smallville revival in the works. Welling is currently working on Smallville animated series with series co-star Michael Rosenbaum. If you don't know who he is, he's pictured right here. He's the one that played Lex Luthor. We've got Al and Miles, who are very busy doing a TV show called Wednesday for Netflix, but they created Smallville. They want to write it. We just need to go ahead from DC and Warner Brothers, the actor explained. We just need them to let us use their property. And I don't know if they will or not. Here's what we kind of saw at the very last. Oh, it's not showing on the screen. Why is it not showing on the screen? Okay. Got a lot of technical difficulties. It's a professional show here. Not really. Anyway. This is actually the picture that we saw at the very end of the last episode of Smallville that kind of showed him changing into the suit, but not really in the full suit per se. So I think it'd be kind of cool to see him in live action. Here's some other pictures of him. There's Erica Durance playing Lois Lane. That's actually from the actual, like the very intro of every one of the episodes when they play that song, Somebody Save Me. There's Lex Luthor, played by Michael Rosenbaum. Matter of fact, these two guys right here, and I've watched it a couple times, they do a podcast together. I forget what it's called. It's like called Smallville Pod or something. I don't know. I don't remember. Either way, they work together and they kind of talk about this stuff. Erica Durance, who played Lois Lane in the hit superhero series, recently talked about what she'd like to see from her character in the animated revival. I'd love to have explored where she would have gone further in her career, the actor said. Whether it was for her to be a mother, how she balanced all of that. I'd like to delve in a little more into her past, her experiences with her dad, and how her upbringing shaped her a little bit more, and just seeing how she grew into another person, a grown-up version of herself. And currently right now, last I checked, all 10 seasons of Smallville can be watched on Hulu. This makes me want to go watch that show again. Oh, man, it's so good. So there you go. That's so I'd be interested in your thoughts. So if you happen to like this idea of seeing Tom Welling back don the super suit for the first time, what is going on? Why is it not showing again? Okay. I don't know why it keeps clicking off that. But I would definitely like to know your thoughts. So leave a comment down in the description if you would, down in the comment section. And let me know if you'd like to see Tom Welling back in, well, I guess not really back technically in the super suit, but actually donning the Superman suit, maybe even as an older Superman, obviously, because Tom Welling is a little bit older now. He's got a little bit of gray hair and so forth. Just like we all do, we age gracefully, hopefully. Anyway, that's DC news. So let's switch over here to some more news about Marvel. And one of my all-time favorite characters in Marvel called Spider-Man. And this is one that's more specific called Spider-Man Noir, which is another type version of Peter Parker in another universe. I always found him fascinating in the comics and so forth. And if you ever saw the Into the Spider-Verse animated movies, Nicolas Cage is the actor who voiced Spider-Man Noir. Well, apparently, a while back, if you didn't know this, now you do, there has been in the works a live action version of Spider-Man Noir with Nick Cage reprising his role as Spider-Man Noir. So this article talks about Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir starts shooting. They've started shooting the new live action, and we can't believe the photos are real. So when Nicolas Cage first voiced Spider-Man Noir in the 2018 animated film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, it almost seemed a little too good to be true, especially for diehard fans of the original comic. Following the MGM Plus and Amazon Prime Video announcement in May of 2024 that Nicolas Cage will be reprising his role as the brooding and gritty 1930s detective in his very own series, it once again felt a little hard to truly believe. As the first on-set photos of Spider Noir now begin to circulate online, we still feel like must be living in an alternate reality because this show is really happening, and I can't wait to see it. There's a picture right there that apparently has shown up him. This is obviously he's dressed up in 1930s garb because that's when Spider-Man Noir took place. As first reported by Just Jared, Nicolas Cage was recently spotted donning the iconic Spider-Man Noir trench coat while filming Spider Noir in L.A. The on-set photos show Nicolas Cage in the early morning hours in a downtown setting as a detective character strolls down the dark streets, recouping from appears to have been a recent struggle with some unseen perpetrators. What I'm wondering is if they're going to do this like in a black and white noir type setting. If it comes out actually in black and white, I think that'd be kind of cool. That would just add even more to it. A little more crispness and pop to it. So anyway, here's another picture of him just being in a fight. I don't know what happened there. As you looking closely at the photos, we can see that he has a bruised cheek after being knocked down on the ground, after taking a moment to gather himself. He then struggles to get on his feet, taking his time before wobbling, lifting himself up off the ground. There is what he looks like in the actual Into the Spider-Verse series. So you see the trench coat, he's wearing the hat, and of course the Spidey suit underneath. He also normally seen in the comics as donning a sidearm. So it's really kind of cool. It's all about, he's kind of like a Spider-Man crime-solving detective version of Peter Parker. And I for one can't wait to see it. I'm hoping that they don't do what they've been doing as of late, which is making everything woke and identity politics. Instead, I'd like to see them just go right back to what was actually in the comics. That would be really kind of cool. Especially showing a crime-ridden 1930s New York as Nicolas Cage plays Peter Parker. Oh, man, that would be so cool. Anyway, there you go. Shifting gears again, we have some other weird news here that this happened a while back, but I thought I'd mention it since I haven't got a chance to talk about it. Chick-fil-A. I don't know about you, but I love me some Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is really good. I love their chicken nuggets, their unsweet tea. Most people like their sweet tea. I do not like their sweet tea. I've always been an unsweet tea guy. But one of my favorite things to get there is to get their either their grilled or breaded chicken nuggets, and a waffle fry and a large unsweet tea with lime or lemon if they've got it, which is really good. But anyway, Chick-fil-A, who is a Christian-run organization, because that's why you can't go to them on Sunday, I dare you, go try it. Yeah, chicken nuggets for the win. Exactly, Tracy. Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays. I dare you, go try it. Go see if you can have it. You won't get any on Sunday. It's because they're a Christian organization. They close on Sunday to give their employees a chance to go to church. Anyway, they have decided to move into the entertainment space by creating their own streaming platform. Now, I don't know any more details about this other than the fact that they have decided to make their own streaming platform with, I would assume, probably Christian content on it, like Christian movies, maybe Christian TV shows, kind of like what PureFlix does with David R. White, as well as like what Angel Studios does. The people that made Sound of Freedom movie a number of years back, they also produce, and they also do The Chosen. They produce several different shows and things like that. But for Chick-fil-A to do this, I'm thinking, yeah, I got to go get me some Chick-fil-A. I'm hoping they don't open that up, start that service on a Sunday. It'd be awesome if they did it any other time during the week. Because then I would go grab me some chicken nuggets, some waffle fries, and a large unsweet tea, and plop myself down in front of a screen and watch me some Chick-fil-A streaming stuff while eating Chick-fil-A. I think that'd be kind of cool, don't you? Anyway. So, all right. We got two major subjects here I want to talk about today. One of them is a YouTube podcaster and podcast that I have been watching for quite a while. And him and his team cover quite a bit of, they cover politics, but they cover more than just that. They cover anything and everything in the news, including even sometimes pop culture and games and things like that. But they're mainly known for definitely covering like the business area things, as well as political, as well as like I just watched the live stream this morning of their podcast. And they talked about the hurricane down in Florida and gave their thoughts on it and so forth. And of course, what I'm talking about is called the Patrick Bet David podcast. And if you've never heard of them, I encourage you to go watch it. They, for the most part, are really clean in content. They don't. I don't think I've heard them cuss a whole lot. Of course, then again, I also use a profanity filter that catches all that. But nevertheless, their content seems to be very authentic, something that the mainstream news does not give you. Mainstream media, if you didn't know, they are not the most trustworthy right now. They are definitely political leaning. A lot of times political leaning to the left. They're trying to push a narrative on you. They're telling you more of a story than actually reporting the truth. Patrick Bet-David and his team, they kind of really bring the truth out there and just kind of let you decide on your own, which I kind of like. I kind of tend to watch those types of podcasts or listen to those. And needless to say, I've got an article here I'm going to read a little bit about, but it's going to read about the actual success of Patrick Bet-David. And actually, he's got a website called patrickbetdavid.com, where he does more than just a podcast. They also do business consulting and things. And obviously there's a link to his podcast there. There is, you can read about Patrick Bet-David and who he is. I just found the article a little bit interesting about him. So let's dive in here and read about it. Inside the unlikely success of Patrick Bet-David. So anyway, let me zoom in on this. I can make it so you can read it. There we go. Wow. Okay. I had to go into 200. Let me do it this way. There we go. A right turn off Montauk Highway onto a leafy street in the Hamptons town of Watermill brings you to a wooden gate, behind which sits a 12,000 square foot modern estate that rents with staff for $75,000 a week. At the moment, it's the vacation home of Patrick Bet-David, an unlikely character to find in this area of New York. Over the last 2 years, Bet-David has improbably emerged as one of the most prominent voices in right-wing media. Oh, excuse me. His prodigious influence is believed to be belied by the fact that around here, he's more undercover heretic than an acclaimed celebrity. Such is the benefit of fame on YouTube, the Wild West of the media world. It's lucrative enough. One moment here. Let me check something. Oh, why did it click off on that? I like to know why it does that. Okay. Where were we? Okay. Bet-David, now 45 and a bona fide media mogul with a taste for Ferragamos, he has had just one mention in the Times, a fleeting one in 2017 piece about micro-influencers who capture their daily and often mundane lives on camera. I guess the one thing that I really like about Patrick Bet-David is he's a very, very hopeful and positive podcast. He does not like the negativity that's out there. Matter of fact, his overall slogan, if you've ever watched Patrick Bet-David, is "The future looks bright." And oftentimes he also talks about Christian views and so forth, which I really like as well. But he is definitely conservative. And like I said, he doesn't really, from what I can tell, he doesn't try to push that narrative on you. Instead, he just kind of pushes out the facts out there, because with the three other guys he has there that they call the home team, they all each have different viewpoints, one on the left, one on the right, and kind of one somewhere in between, and he kind of lets them all talk, and then he just kind of like moderates it a little bit. That way you kind of see and hear all the different viewpoints about whatever topic they're talking about, not just politics, but about, like they even had their ideas about how the government was handling Hurricane Helene as well as Hurricane Milton, and the situation with, which I don't want to get into all that, but how Kamala Harris and Governor DeSantis of Florida were into like a little spat about things, which made no sense to me, because I agree with Governor DeSantis, and also even Joe Biden's response to this was she's the vice president. She's not in the chain of command when it comes to relief for like hurricane disasters or something like that. The mere fact that Governor DeSantis is working with the president and FEMA has nothing to do with Harris being involved, and that the only reason why she wants to be involved, I personally think, my 2 cents worth, is simply because it's a political thing, and it shouldn't be. It should be about the people that are suffering, the people that have maybe lost their homes, lost everything, that the people are even struggling to have a place to feel safe, that are injured, that are people that have even lost their lives during this whole natural disaster. Because the last couple of days I've been watching the news on some of this with the hurricane itself. It has been a disaster, and I could not believe the video of just how powerful that hurricane is, and the destructive wake that it and 18 different tornadoes went through across the state of Florida with just Hurricane Milton. It amazes me. It just shows the power of our God, but even more importantly, it shows how we need to keep them in prayer, and that we need to rally around this. Our nation needs to rally around those people affected by it, like we did a number of years ago with Hurricane Katrina. This is no different. Anyway, I brought that up because Patrick McDavid was talking about that this morning, and he was looking at all the different type of views on it and so forth. So anyway, going further into his life here, says, Bet David's biography makes his story even more improbable. He's a refugee from Iran who spent his adolescence as a hard-partying club rat and briefly a bodyguard to a drug dealer, who turned his life around after signing up for the Army, the 101st Airborne to be precise, and finding, I need to turn off the the filter block to block that. I need okay, there we go. And finding God. My profanity filter blocks words like God and turns it into the word potato anytime he uses filtering. Anyway. His audience is vast and obsessive. Ask any 35-year-old guy if he knows Patrick Bet David, and he'll look at you like you just asked who John Lennon is. Bet David boasts nearly 8 million subscribers between 2 YouTube channels. Valuetainment is one of them, and his podcast. In May and June of this year, those channels drew 258 million views, making Bet David the third most watched in news media on the entire platform, behind MSNBC and Fox News, but ahead of CNN and ABC, which those four listed are all part of the mainstream media. Disruption is here. Whether we like it or not, he told him in the Airy TV room of the Walter Millhouse, if Fox offered me $20 million a year, I'm not doing it. Because I get it. There is a freedom in being a podcaster on YouTube. With the exception of still having to adhere to YouTube's terms of service, and also dealing with sometimes them wanting to censor you and so forth. You answer to no one. In my case, I answer to God, and he's the ultimate authority over this little penguin. That and iced coffee. Which, speaking of which, sip them if you got them, because we got to sip some iced coffee. I got toasted coconut iced coffee today. Good stuff. Okay. All right. Gotta stay hydrated and caffeinated. His two channels blend reactionary political commentary and heated debates with the more inspirational style of entrepreneur influencers. His assessments are sprinkled with psychoanalysis. In his world, people fit neatly into archetypes. There are fighters and victims, alphas and water carriers. His output is prodigious and the content lengthy. The YouTube world is by design long-winded. The longer your video, the more ad breaks you can fit into it. That's why I call it long-form content. The more money you make from each viewer. And I'm hoping someday this little penguin will get monetized on YouTube. I am monetized on Twitch, but not on YouTube yet, and I'm working toward that. Anyway, Bet David's sit down with Tucker Carlson stretched for more than 2 hours. And maybe one of these days we'll show that as well. But his interview with Iran's Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, was just shy of 3 hours. His 2 interviews with Joe Rogan, the king of the ambling confab, combined for 363 minutes, or more than 6 hours. They racked up millions of views. The YouTube landscape is, like so much of modern media, hopelessly balkanized. There's money in preaching to the choir, particularly in an era where the choir has a vast universe of commentators to choose from and the means to fund them directly. Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm just glad that this little penguin is allowed to be one of them. That's why I started Penguin Thoughts, so I can share my thoughts on pop culture and all this craziness out there that's in content creation space and games and all the geeky stuff I love. Anyway, what makes Bet David compelling is that he manages to narrowly avoid delivering the boring partisan slop so prevalent on YouTube by platforming voices of different political persuasions, whether it's Chris Cuomo or Sam Seder, the popular progressive radio host who recently appeared on his show for a spirited debate. By the way, it's not just political content. Like I said, he also covers a variety of other different subjects. If it's in the mainstream news, he covers it. They give a talk about it. Especially, they talk a lot about business as well. Like, for example, one of the things that I like that they talk a lot about, and this is one of the reasons why I watch the PBD podcast, is they're always talking about the financial side of Disney. Because Disney, if you didn't know, Disney has really gone the last several years downhill. They are burning money like it grows on trees. Also, they can push their political agenda. And it's funny to watch them kind of crash and burn. And PBD and his podcast is one of the few content creators out there that goes into detail about it. I also watch Valiant Renegade sometimes because he talks about the finances of Disney as well and so forth. But anyway, because I'm not into politics all that much. Although I do pay attention to this race this year, this is really kind of important. And I think if anything, you should be the one thing you get out of this. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but you should get out and vote. That's the one thing I'll tell you, get out and vote. Because if you don't vote, then you really have no say in the way this country goes. And personally, I believe every Christian should vote. Regardless they like who the two candidates are or not, you should still vote. Because voting is something that is is fundamental to our freedom as an American citizen that we have as a right in this country to do. We should exercise it. Anyway, it goes on. The article goes, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I'm going to go into a little bit here. It says, the article goes on, he and his crew have a pretty superficial understanding of even the things that purport to believe. So it's pretty easy for me to twist them in knots. Let's see here. I'm skipping the part about Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. Like I said, I don't really want to get into the politics and stuff. Let's see here. PBD briefly attended Santa Monica Community College, but spent most of his time partying. He was, he says, a 1.8 GPA guy. He drank, took drugs, and danced. He was a regular attendee at a Vegas bacchanal known as the Pimp and Hoe Ball. Okay. For money, he worked at Burger King. At 18, realizing his life was going nowhere, he enlisted in the Army. He kept partying, and one video on his YouTube channel, thanks to some nifty, if cheesy editing in this video, Bet David interviews himself. He recalled once getting so twisted on booze and ecstasy, he thought that a tree outside a Glendale Jack-in-the-Box was a unicorn chasing him. That's a visual. He tried weed and didn't mind it. It just slowed me down, but I don't want to slow down. He claims to have briefly worked as a bodyguard for one of the biggest cocaine dealers in L.A. During that time, he tried the drug, not for me. That was my life, he told me, and then I got out. After leaving the Army, he returned to L.A. and connected with an old high school friend, a tough guy and a fighter. So wild, he had once done the drug PCP, who had turned his life around and was teaching math at a local community college. God, he said, had saved him. This is the part I like. This is kind of the part I wanted to share about him. This is another reason why I watch him. Because I don't know about the rest of the guys on his team, but I know that he talks about God quite a bit sometimes in his podcast. God, PBD said, had actually his friend, PBD's friend said it saved him, then an atheist, Bet David reluctantly attended Bible study with his old friend. He got hooked and began attending every Friday night from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. 18 months later, I was completely changed, said Bet David, now a devout Christian. I stopped going to clubs. The day before 9/11, a Glendale branch manager at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, impressed by Bet David's service in the Army and his hunger for sales, hired him as a financial advisor. He went on to work at Transamerica for nearly 8 years, realizing along the way that he didn't want to climb the corporate ladder at a bank or an insurance agency. At the time, he attended a mega church in the San Fernando Valley. His pastor, Dudley Rutherford, preached the power of media, deeming it the hardest but most important mountain to climb in life. He placed it ahead of 6 others, including family. In 2009, Bet David launched an insurance business, PHP. It stands for People Helping People. It fashioned himself an inspirational symbol of success for his employees. He launched a YouTube channel in 2012. So that's how long he's been on YouTube. He's been on YouTube for what? That's 12 years? Wow. And posted videos about business and entrepreneurship. They do talk a lot about that. He even talks about how to help you grow on YouTube and so forth. So I kind of like watch that stuff too. Once published in 2015, The Life of an Entrepreneur in 90 Seconds went viral on YouTube and Facebook, drawing millions of views and demonstrating he could find success online. The short clip is an inspirational video set to dramatic strings with shots of Bette David driving around in a Ferrari 458 Italia, cut with scenes of rejection from early in his career. Most people only pay attention to the final product of a successful entrepreneur, Bette David narrates. Excuse me. In 2013, he launched Valuetainment, a media company that holds regular Tony Robbins-style conventions where thousands of aspiring Bette Davids come to hear uplifting speeches or talks moderated by him. Now, he doesn't hold true to Tony Robbins type of beliefs and stuff. Actually, he pushes Christian beliefs. One such convention held in 2019 featuring Kobe Bryant now boasts more than 5 million views on YouTube. This year's gathering in early September listed Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Nick Saban on its schedule. As his audience grew, Bette David took a hard right shift into political commentary, launching another channel, PBD Podcast, to host debates and interviews. That foray in between America's culture, war, politics was a natural step for someone of Bette David's sensibilities. It also put him in front of a much broader and more obsessive audience. His company, which encompasses a media arm and consulting division, now boasts 115 employees. He counts the likes of Donald Trump and Piers Morgan as admirers. Patrick is a smart, curious, incredibly well-informed man who is the true embodiment of the American dream. Morgan told me that's what Morgan told the guy who wrote this article. I think his remarkable success is a result of his extraordinary family backstory, his experience serving in the U.S. military, and his natural entrepreneurial zeal. He's one of my favorite repeat guests on Piers Morgan Uncensored because he always has different and interesting takes on what's happening in the world. That is one of the things I like about him, about PBD. He does have different takes than most people out there, especially he definitely doesn't agree a lot at all with the mainstream media. He also looks at things from a different perspective, I think. A very uplifting, encouraging perspective. And I'll be honest, I'm going to share something with you. Sometimes this little penguin gets discouraged with seeing what's going on in this world and the way things have been over the last several years. And I know that some of you out there can relate with me to just seeing, especially just America itself, regardless of the rest of the world, how things are just really going downhill fast. And it's nice, in my opinion, sometimes to be given that reality of what's happening, but then also kind of giving the hope we have out there, to giving an uplifting message with it. Which is something I personally try to agree with that I like to do on this little channel as well. I'm just a little small penguin. I would say fish, but I don't like fish. Fish are mean. They're evil, I tell you. Gotta be careful. Gotta prepare for the fish Armageddon. But nevertheless, I'm a little penguin in a big YouTube pond out there. This guy, Patrick Bette David, is one of the largest out there in the YouTube pond. And I like the fact that he is constantly bringing a positive, uplifting message. It personally encourages me. And I'm not going to read the rest of this. You can read this for yourself. It goes on for a little bit longer. Once again, the link for this article is down in the description. But if anything, you walk away from this, I do encourage you that if you're interested at all you could just go to YouTube and search for the PBD podcast. You could also go to valuetainment.com, to where they give news and all the stuff is trending. They give tech, entertainment news out there, and so forth. It's all really, I think it's all really good stuff. Because like I said, he really tries to bring a positive, uplifting thing from this. Even the stuff that you can see that is not going well. Like, look right here. Is go to valuetainment.com. Oh, excuse me. Whoa. The first article he has up in here, posted just an hour ago, is about Hurricane Milton and the wreck that it did on Florida and so forth. Anyway. So, here's what I'm going to do now. I am getting ready to talk about the last subject here, which my experience on YouTube has been such, especially getting closer and closer to the election. There are certain subjects that I've even had my stream stopped before by YouTube. And so what I am going to do is the last little bit, I got like an hour and a half long video to where it's about Tucker Carlson and him interviewing Russell Brand, and Russell Brand giving his conversion as well to Christianity, as well as his thoughts on things. I'm going to actually pause for a few minutes here, go to my main logo. I'm going to end on YouTube, but I'm going to continue doing the podcast over on Rumble. So I encourage you, if you want to watch the rest of this, to go over on Rumble. And that way you can find, watch the rest of this podcast, Ping with Dots, over on Rumble. And that way I also don't have to worry about YouTube, which will eventually shut down my stream anyway, because it seems like the more and more I talk about either Tucker or I talk about Russell Brand or I talk about Christianity, they want to silence, especially about Jesus. When I talk a lot about God and Jesus, they've shut down my stream more than once. Because whether you do it or not, YouTube is not a free speech platform. Rumble is, more and more X, aka Twitter is, but YouTube is not. Matter of fact, Google, who owns YouTube, if you didn't know, is a left-leaning company. And anybody that wants to talk about God or about conservative views or anything like that, they kind of want to silence you. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. And they make the rules. So, I encourage you. I'm going to take about a good 2-3 minute break here. I'm going to go to my logo. I'm going to end the stream on YouTube. And then I will post a link before I do that in the YouTube chat, where you can go over to Rumble to join this on the rest of Penguin Thoughts. So take a few minute break and we'll be back on Penguin Thoughts over on Rumble.